Welcome back. Today I'm going to show you behind the scenes one of our scaling workshops where I am answering questions from business owners of all different industries and all different questions. And so listen and hope you enjoy. Raise your hand super high, no T-Rex arms. And I'm just going to try and get as many questions, and I'm going to try and spread myself across the room. Sound good? All right, cool. You were already, I appreciate it.
Hey, Leo, thank you so much for your videos. Very, very helpful all around. We run a Mandarin Chinese online course. We do a lot of automated onboarding, and I really enjoy getting that really dialed in and looking at the numbers and all of that. We recently introduced a once a week live stream for new members, but what I'm very interested in is ways of improving the onboarding, and in particular, ways of getting our customers who are very happy with us, we always get 5-star reviews, to be incentivized to refer so we can get more referral revenue.
Do you ask them to refer?
Not really. You know, I mean, we should probably start with that.
It's literally like the first thing is most people, when I'm like, do you ask them? And they're like, well, no, I just would like them to. I'm like, well, we start with asking. Yeah. So something really interesting is I have a friend who they do referral plays, right? And they generate about, on the front end, before they even have the person use the product and get value from it, they get about 30% of the people to refer somebody simply by asking every step of the way. And so they don't even give any incentive. They're just like, would this benefit your spouse, your friend, your this? They give all the scenarios of all the kind of people that you can think through in your mind that it might benefit. And so I say that to impress upon you, like even just asking oftentimes does a lot more than people would think so. In terms of giving somebody some sort of incentive, I'm a fan with referrals of giving them something extra rather than removing away a pain. So if you look at like how to incentivize people, it's either remove something that they're currently is a current pain. It could be a payment, it could be time, it could be anything, right? Or you could add an incentive. I'm a fan of adding an incentive for a referral because most companies say, we'll, comp a month, we'll do this, we'll do that. I think when people are like, we'll send you a $500 gift card, that's a lot more meaningful in my opinion because it's not as common. So that's the first thing I would do is like consider like how much could you pay for a customer as a referral?
And do you think that since a lot of these people would never have come to us anyway, do you think we should be fairly generous with it? Like in the sense of like, a lot of times I've heard you guys say pay CAC for this type of thing. So, but would you maybe even do more considering that it wasn't revenue we were going to get unless we set up some kind of system for it?
I would start at CAC and you can raise it if you want. It's a lot harder to go down than to go up. So I always like to start and then say like, great, if I want to go up, I can go up. But like also I would say like, what's CAC right now?
About 120.
Okay,
for a 997 product.
Okay, and so I would say like, what's the difference between like 120 and 200? Like,
yeah, sure.
I mean, 200 might actually get you a higher conversion in terms of referrals just because of like the difference in terms of the hundreds, but it might also not because it's not like a huge substantial difference. So I would start at the 120 or maybe just round it to 150 and then say like, that's what we'll give you for a referral. And then I would teach them how to refer. So like a lot of people, the reason that companies don't get good referrals is because it's not easy. Like you look at DoorDash or Uber, all those, it's like one button refer. Like it's seamless. And so if someone's gonna go through the headache of referring somebody, the best thing you could at least do is teach them how to do it in like 3 easy steps to refer. Make it as frictionless as possible for them to refer. Write the message out that they're gonna send to this person. Like literally, what we've done in pretty much every company and in our portfolio companies, we're like, here's the sequence you're going to send out to these people to refer them over to this thing because it's not like in some of the companies it's not automated enough because they're service not software, so it's like we don't have a piece of software doing it for us. So I would say first off, actually ask for it and ask for it multiple times. Like give them in the beginning, I would say 3 opportunities to refer, and then you make it as easy as possible and pay $150.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you.
For sure. All right. Yes, hands. Right here.
I come from an industry where it was very easy to keep talent and motivated because they were professionals, they were engineers. So it was easy for me to train and lead a team of aerospace engineers to design something. But now going into the health space and having to hire and train lower skill people, finding it really hard for people to stay with the mission and just do simple things of like, hey, I need you to smile when you say hi to the patient. I need you to be courteous, use their name. And then they're like, fuck it, let me go work at a hospital when I have to do nothing of that sort, right? So how do you make that transition between, you know, being able to lead like and have those SOPs and not having to constantly hire and hire and hire over and over again for that?
Well, I would say this, which is it's all about setting the expectation, because you guys saw Frank's presentation yesterday. Um, Having a process in place like that, what it actually does is it attracts the right people and it repels the wrong people. And so, for example, if somebody goes through the interview process at acquisition.com and they are, not on board with like our motto of praise over punishment, and they're not, really competitively great, they're probably going to be like, yeah, fuck, this is really intense. These people are like a fucking cult. Like, I don't want to work here. You know what I mean? And I want that because I want the opposite of those people to work here. And so I would ask yourself, like, when you're having the process, a lot of people, this is the thing, they're so scared of repelling people that they don't attract the ones that they want, because they're like, oh, I don't want to offend anybody. Well, fuck that. This is like, they're going to quit their job to work for you. That's a big decision. We have to be completely straight up with these people. Like, what are you walking into when you come to join this team? And what are you looking for in a teammate? And so, a lot of, and I know Frank goes over it with like setting expectations. Like, I spend so much of my time on interviews. I did a final interview today. And you know what I did? I set expectations. I read in the notes that they've been set before. I set them again, and I just give my perspective on the role, what makes or breaks it, what my expectations are, the 3 things I'm looking for. I do all the same shit that we teach you guys. And so I really think it's that. Like, when anyone voices a problem about like, these are the kind of people we're getting, you're just letting the wrong people in. And so how are we going to filter for that before they even get a seat at the table? And so I think it's literally just implementing what you learned yesterday. And here's the thing is, a lot of people say, well, okay, Layla, well, you have this larger company and this more team. Like, of course you implement that. And some of you have companies just as large, but just saying, like, I started doing that when we had 4 people here. Like, putting a process together for like hiring, like, I sat down for a day and like made a giant Asana board. And guess what? That board still exists today. And the recruiting team has just innovated on it. But like, that kind of stuff, it's not that you have to be the one doing the process every time, having every single interview, keeping with all the questions. You just make sure that somebody else does and that the process has been built. And once you build it once, it will work as long as you continue to refer to it and refer people to it and teach them how to use it. So I'd also say, like, I know you guys are a smaller team right now. I do not think you can ever be too early to implement this, because who you get on your team is going to dictate how much your company will grow.
Yeah. Thank you.
For sure. Over here.
We're about 10 million top line, and I've worked myself out of the company over the last couple of years, so I'm maybe 2-3 hours a day. And I guess after the last 2 days, I have a shit ton of work to do. But after that's done, what do you see as my highest and best use of time?
Well, what's your goal? Because if you
million.
worked yourself out, what's the purpose of the business for you? There's no right or wrong answer. Just like
no. Long term, roll up other smaller companies, get to 100 million top line, and then sell to private equity.
Okay. What's the business?
Roofing.
Roofing? Nice. Yeah, that makes sense. It's a good industry to do it in. So what can you do to leverage yourself right now? I would say, like, over the last day, what did you identify as your constraint?
I thought it was sales, but it's actually marketing.
Mm.
It sounds really dumb even saying it out loud.
Why?
No, so I thought the constraint was sales. So I had planned on, we're actually hiring a sales manager. I'm going to hire new salespeople and all this. But really, I need to get other channels of marketing. We're 90% of paid is Google. 70% of our leads come from Google. I need to spread that out.
Understood. Okay. And I would ask myself right now, like, I mean, the way I see it is like my job is always to move the company forward. And like I said it to you, but like pull the future into the present. Like, how am I doing that? It's usually by relieving constraints. And also in the time that I'm not alleviating that, whatever that one constraint is, because I basically am like, what I do quarter to quarter absolutely changes completely. My schedule changes all the time. How I manage my days, it changes probably every 2 months. Because it's based on what problem I'm solving.
Right.
Is it, marketing, sales, CS, whatever, right? Like our version of that. So, I don't think there's anything wrong with just focusing on what needs to happen rather than like, you're the basically head generalist. So like, you go where you're needed, right? I would say the second piece of that is like, how do you get ahead, right? Which is like looking at what's to come, which is focus your main time on the constraint, but then the rest of your time is always looking ahead saying, what could I do now to prevent these things from becoming a constraint next? And that's what I'm constantly thinking about. Probably once I've figured out how do we need to solve the constraint and assembled like the team that's going to work on it, and we have our initiatives, then I'm thinking, okay, what's the next thing that's about to happen? Right? Because, okay, you solve the marketing constraint. What is the next constraint?
Leadership.
It's probably sales.
Yeah. Yeah, they go.
So were you that wrong of like, okay, it might just be that you're one step, you're like, oh, it's gonna, but it might be once you solve those channels, then sales blow up. Oh wait, we don't have enough calendars available because we don't have enough reps. Oh wait, who's gonna manage the, we have to switch to another, oh wait, shit, that's me doing that. Wait, I need a sales manager. So, I mean, it always goes down the funnel for the most part, especially if you start at marketing, it's like likely next to sales, then CS, then, and multiple things, I would say like, depending on their strengths or weaknesses, could break at once or at different times. But I would be using the rest of your time to think, if that's the goal, if the roll up is the goal, how do I pull that into the future? And I would be saying, like, if my goal is to do a roll up, then I need to have systems that can repeat like clockwork. So once I get something that works, I don't continue to test it over and over. I just want a system that works well enough that I can repeat this and do a roll up, right? And then I would say the next thing I'm going to need is shared services. Because if you're going to do roll up, you're probably going to be managing the different entities. You're not going to be managing their companies, things like that, but financials would make sense to roll up under one. And if you can do, human resources, that kind of goes with that under the same benefits roof, to whatever degree they provide them, and then IT. And so if you have a shared services department, I would also say you're probably going to get a higher multiple on that roll up anyways. So, and I don't think it's that hard to build shared services for those three departments. Right. Other departments to do, like if you're going to do shared marketing, all that gets a little complicated, but those three, that would increase your multiple and it'll be super beneficial for the roll up in general. So I'd be thinking like, what can I be building in my spare time that I'm not solving my constraint that can move me towards that goal?
I love it.
Okay. Sweet. I feel like I just rambled at you for a second there. So
no, I didn't.
Okay, cool. All right. Right here in the gray.
So we've got department heads. Our top line revenue is around 20 million. I'm thinking I want to hire like an operations manager or like just someone to like be the point of like the head.
Yeah.
And me step back and work on like just growing the business. And am I on the right track? And if so, any advice on hiring that? Because I feel kind of scared because it's kind of like letting go of the wheel. In a sense, I don't know if I'm on the right track here or not.
Yeah. I mean, I'll ask you these couple of questions, which is one, what are the top 3 things this person's going to do weekly, daily basis?
Managing all the department heads, holding them accountable to their scorecards, and then just putting out small fires, random shit that comes up.
Okay, so it's mostly somebody who's a leader.
Correct.
Okay. How much of that person do you need to help you in facilitating growth in the company? Do you see them as somebody that you would like to grow into that, or do you just want somebody to handle the day-to-day?
I want someone to handle the day-to-day so I can focus on growth.
Okay. I think absolutely you're at the size where you could hire that. People hire it at half your revenue. I think it comes down to preference and where you want to spend your time. You know what I mean? Like, I like actually managing the core team. That's actually something I really enjoy doing. And it sounds crazy, but I like it. And so I just spread myself super thin. But I think there's no right or wrong is what I'm saying. Is like, if you would prefer not to do that and to just focus on this one thing because you operate best that way, then let's do that. Because I think that there's different ways that you can play the role of CEO or founder. Some people don't manage anybody except for one person, right? And some people manage every person. It's just like, how do you know that you're going to work best? And if all this noise over here is just too much that you can't get the other stuff done, then get somebody. And the only thing I'll say is this: if you hire someone, look for someone who is a leader, who has influence. And at this point, if it's not something that you feel like you can teach that person, then it means you hire for somebody who already has that. But where a lot of people make the mistake is they hire someone to manage the day-to-day. And then what I see a lot of times is then it transfers over. They're like, well, why are they not growing the company? I'm like, well, what did you hire them for? And so I think that is a very important delineation to understand, is like, when I'm hiring for an operator, I really think about, like, do I need somebody that can just manage or like manage and grow? What do I need now? What am I going to need in a year? So I would just think that through to understand, because it's definitely a different avatar.
Got it. Thank you.
For sure. Let's go right here.
other than listening to your podcast every day, what do you recommend I can do to be a leader in terms of like being a leader in my company, and then also helping patients in the vision of what they can achieve with their health?
Well, where do you think you're weakest?
That
No, like
provoking.
leadership is such a like broad
Huge.
term, right? So it's like, what's the one skill within leadership, which is compiled of probably 30, 40 skills that you're like, this is probably, I mean, you can ask her if you're not curious, if you're not sure.
Well, I think like for me, this is something so new that now it's like, oh shit, I need to become a leader. Like, how do I do that? How do I get people to feel like they want to work with us, or like that they want to do the treatments that I'm offering, So it's like I'm facing that in both sides of what
Understood.
I'm doing right now.
I think that you're overcomplicating it a little bit.
I do that a lot.
Yeah. The way I look at it, in terms of leadership and management, every day is game day, which means every one-on-one, like I literally think to myself in the morning, I'm like, I need to crush this one-on-one. Like, I know it sounds insane, but I'm like, if I want to be a leader, then I take these meetings just as seriously as I take a meeting talking about our growth strategy or talking about anything else in the business. And so you get to practice every day, every time you have an interaction with somebody. And so the question is, I would say every day in the beginning of your day, are you thinking about what am I going to do differently today? One thing, not 3, not 4, not 10, but what's one thing I'm going to do differently today in these interactions than I did yesterday? And that adds up a lot. And if you focus on one thing at a time, your rate of improvement will be much higher than if you focus on 10. In the beginning, what I used to do for myself is I would have a sticky note that I would put on my computer, whatever I was trying to focus on at the time. In the beginning, because I'm very expressive with my face, and so someone would say something, I'd be like, it's like, that's not good. So I just had a little sticky note that said, be neutral. And I probably had that for about 2-3 weeks until I noticed like, I was just like a neutral reaction to everything. Nothing was good or bad. I just was like asking questions, right? And then at one point, I felt like I was too passive. And so I had a word that said confront. And so someone would say something and everyone would be like, okay. And I'd be like, actually, no, I don't agree. Let's talk about that. And so I think you just have to identify like, what's the one thing I can focus on today? And if you keep it top of mind and you put environmental cues around for yourself, you're going to get better. But don't overcomplicate and think like you don't need some fucking, sorry, but like, I'm not sorry, fuck it. Like you don't need like to read all these leadership books and like everyone spends too much time in their heads. People always ask me, they're like, what did you learn? Who did you, nobody, I fucking did it. I just fucking did it. Yeah. And then I get feedback from my team. That's a huge piece too, which is like, you don't just get feedback from watching yourself do it, but you get feedback from the reaction the person has. Does their behavior change or not? If it doesn't change, try again. So I look at it as like my whole team is a result. It's all feedback. Their behaviors, how they act, the people I interact with, their behaviors are feedback to me of if I'm doing my job right or not. So you get that every day. So don't feel like you need to go read some book or read like, you don't need it. Like you just have to observe and become incredibly observant of everything around you and say like, I said this to this person on Thursday. What are they doing on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday?
Thank you so much.
For sure. Let's go right here.
I run a dental recruiting and consulting firm.
Oh.
And that's kind of part of the problem is we're doing both. And I'm at the point where we need to commit kind of one way or the other. We only take on the consulting projects to keep the lights on while we're trying to scale the recruiting projects.
So you recruit for dental practices?
Yes.
Dude, my cousin's a dentist and texted me this morning. He said, I'm sorry to bug you, but I can't find this one front desk. All right. Gonna need your number. I was like, bro, I don't know.
Yeah. So that's what we do. We specifically in recruiting, we're only doing dentists and hygienists.
Okay.
And that's it. And it's a premium recruiting offer. But like I said, me and my partner take on bigger consulting projects just to keep the lights on.
Okay.
In a way to justify, I guess, trying to scale the recruiting part.
How long have you had the recruiting part?
We've been doing it for about 2.5 years.
And how much profit does it make or how much money is it losing?
We're not losing money. So specifically on the recruiting model, we're a 6-to-1 lifetime value to CAC, but it's cash flow tight because it takes a long time for us to fulfill those.
Can you tell me your
positions.
pricing model?
Yeah, so for our done-for-you associate hiring system, which is like, anyways, 35,000 total fee, flat fee, and then we collect that over the phase of the project. So we just recently changed the investment model as far as we used to ask for 30% upfront, the remaining 70% at signing. We're testing to see if we can do 3,000 a month plus progress payments for every qualified candidate we deliver to the practice, and then the remaining due when the placement is completed.
Understood. Okay. Is there any reason you couldn't do 50-50?
We just haven't tried it.
That's
as
all
far
I
as
always
like
pay for.
50% up front, 50% at placement.
Yeah.
We
You
just
should
haven't.
pitch that shit.
Okay.
Yeah. But okay, so you have the consulting side. How much revenue does that generate?
So the revenue is kind of split 50-50. We're not huge, so we're doing about 650 top. And so the few projects that we brought on, just my partner and I solely fulfill those as far as the consulting, and then the rest of the team, which is only 2 or 3 other people, do the recruiting bit.
Okay, understood. So with the consulting piece though, how much of your time is it taking? Why is it a problem?
Takes up a lot of time, and I just feel like it takes us down a path of not being able to focus on the recruiting bit, and it feels unscalable compared to the recruiting. Feels like our systems and all that is pretty dialed in. So the question then becomes, is it more of a lead sales problem on the recruiting if we just could generate more leads?
Is there,
close
I mean,
more
do you
deals?
upsell the recruiting clients into consulting?
We've considered it. We do offer like an onboarding system upsell for 12 months of ongoing coaching on how to onboard them, how to make sure it doesn't fall apart and become a disaster kind of a thing.
I'm just trying to think how these things could benefit each other rather than be separate. You know, it's the
Mhm.
same industry. So,
Yeah.
like, I mean, I would say that because you're so niched, what would be interesting is if you did offer some sort of coaching upsell for the clients that you're recruiting for, and then those two things could feed each other. You could continue to know when they need more roles, and you could probably build a more scalable consulting model because you'd have more people in it, and so it wouldn't be one-on-one. It'd be like a group model or something.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't be as profitable as doing one-on-one, but it would work with the other business and also not take so much of your time.
Yeah. So if you were me, which one would you prioritize as far as trying to build out more of the consulting part or doubling down on the recruiting?
Well, I would ask myself, what do I want to become? Which is like, where do you want this business to go? And that's honestly the hardest question to ask anybody. And it's also the one question that you need answered to make those decisions. And only you really know, which is like, what's the purpose of the business? Why does it exist? Do you want to make money off of it? Do you want to sell it? Do you want to build something amazing? And so that becomes the filter to a strategic decision. Every time I'm trying to make a strategic decision, I think back, why does this business exist? What's my mission? And what's my 3-year vision? Does this fit into that? And sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, it does. And here's how these things could all feed each other in a system. You know, like that's why we have this workshop. You know, I was like, wow, this is how this feeds the portfolio, and the portfolio feeds it, and it can all be synergistic. Difficult, but synergistic. And so I think that's what you have to ask yourself is like, can you create a flywheel, right? 2 systems that feed each other and make each other better rather than 2 separate systems. If you can figure that out and it fits within what you want for the business, I think that's a win. If it doesn't fit within what you want, you have to step back and ask yourself, like, what do I want to do with my time? There's no rules. It doesn't matter. Like, and here's the thing that's difficult, but like you'll win either way. You know what I mean? Like winners will win no matter what path they take. One might be harder, one might not be, but like they will figure it out and they will forge through the rock. But it's just like, which way do you want to go?
Okay.
I would try to figure out how they could feed each other. I think they can.
Yeah.
I think it would just take some engineering.
Yeah. Okay. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go right here.
So I have a floral and event design business in Southern California.
Ooh.
We have a lot of celebrity athletes, influencer clients, but I also get approached by some to do events for free for press, social media, and I've been doing this for 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
And I've done it before,
Yeah.
but I don't want to do it anymore. do I do it or not? Or do I approach the people
I mean,
that are
who we
already my
talking about,
clients?
you know? I just, I've
I
never
mean,
understood
for
that because
example,
I will
this
always.
weekend, this weekend I have an event for Whoopi Goldberg.
Oh, nice.
So they gave me a budget,
Mhm.
but they're like, if you give us more, then we'll plug you in some way somehow.
Did they say how?
No, not yet. I'm just like, I said no initially, but now since I've been here, I thought about it for basically exposure.
Well, why did you say no?
Because I'm tired of doing shit for free.
Do you need to do it for free to get more business?
It's just to have like current press to say this person's my client, to kind of bragging rights, I suppose.
Do you have clients that are celebrities that pay you?
Yeah, but I've never told anyone. I've never signed an NDA, but I've never told people that, oh, look who came into the store today, or look who we're delivering to today. I've kept it like confidential because I think we've built that relationship and they trust me to come to me for their events or flowers.
I'd say this, which is like, you get to decide how you want to do business.
Yeah.
Me specifically, I could actually ask for people to do stuff for me for free all day. I get it offered all the time. I don't want to because I don't find that I don't want to owe somebody something. I don't want to have to promote their business. Like I will pay more to not have to do that because I don't like that that dynamic. If you don't feel comfortable doing that and it feels icky, right? Just for whatever reason, then don't do it. Fuck it. Your business will grow and win either way. It doesn't need Whoopi Goldberg one time. And here's the thing that I will say, because a lot of the people that I work with also work with celebrities. Them saying they're going to endorse it could mean so many different things. You get that shit in writing because listen, it's not the celebrity deciding, it's their team. And their teams often are trying to get shit cheap, trying to get stuff done under budget. And so like, how are they going to endorse it is what I would want to understand. Like if I ever did trade, it would be in writing and it would say exactly, I'm going to do 3 Instagram stories, I'm going to make a post, I'm going to tag you, and I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. I don't think just because somebody is a celebrity, and trust me, I know plenty of them, that they should get to treat other people differently unless there's a clear exchange, not a like if there's a clear exchange where they're like, we will do this and look how many people will get sent to you because of these other posts we've done that have sent this much to a business. Otherwise, they're just taking advantage of small businesses.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Right.
I traveled from Prague, from Czech Republic here, so thank you for your videos. I think you are a great operator and I learned so much from your content, so
thank you
for that. And your team is great as well, so I really enjoyed this 2 days spending with you and see what you transfer on others, so it really works.
Thank you.
Coming to the question, which was very interesting for me to hear, was the ratio 10:1 for reinforcements instead of punishment or giving them strong feedback. And now you mentioned the face. I can relate to that. So I'm speaking to my team and coaching them through some situation like communication, etc., how to talk to the customer, how to solve some problems, etc. And I feel sometimes I'm doing it too much. So this one was actually talking to me strongly. So how you navigate with that you don't do it too much? Is it like you just have once a week, one-on-one, and that's it? Or daily they have some situation, so I'm thinking with them, let's say in the middle of the day, hey, where are you at? Asking a few things, they answer to me, like, hey, you solve it this way, I would solve it this way. Okay, makes sense, write it down, next time do it differently, kind of put it in SOPs. But sometimes they can feel that this is too much. But in our culture, it's okay, like we are there for growth. So, but compared to 10:1 reinforcement instead of feedback, yeah.
I would say this, which is like delivering somebody like a criticism is different than telling somebody what they could do differently next time. So it's like critiquing, and then there's also offering alternatives. And they're different, which is like a critique is like, we want you here, you're here, here's the discrepancy. It's pointing out the discrepancy in performance.
But if you're doing it too much, isn't it hard for them to take in a way?
So another thing that you can do is just provide alternatives. So for the most part, what I do is I don't critique people so much as I provide them with an alternative. Oh, you did this? Oh, you know what? You should try this next time. Here's what I did one time, and this worked really well. Try it and let me know what happens. That doesn't seem like a critique because I'm not talking about what happened in the past or what their performance is at. I'm just giving them something to do next time. And so I found that to work really well because I have a lot more of those I can put on. And like people already, if they're high performers, take that harshly because they're like, oh, she thinks I could do it differently. And so that's the first thing I would say. The second thing I would say is that what works for you? You know, you have to understand like and ask yourself like what works for you as somebody that's over this team? How do you want to be systemizing your schedule and all these things to be giving people feedback? At some point, if there's all this, if it's a global problem, right? When I say like local, it's like, okay, there's one or two people that this is happening with versus global, like it's pretty much the whole team. Maybe it's one to many, not one to one. Because at some point that has to be the switch because you want to level up the whole team. And every time you have a one-on-one interaction, you kind of do a disservice to the rest of the team by they don't get that feedback or that insight that that one person did. And so I would also just ask myself in these situations, like, is it one person? Is it the whole team? Is this a pattern or is it a one-off? You know, I factor in, is somebody new? Is somebody been here for a while? You know, what's going on in the environment? In terms of giving them feedback, I think that the best thing that you can do is rather than you constantly giving them feedback, you create a system or an environment where they give themselves feedback. So for example, you know, I do end of week reports where people are turning things in, talking about how the week went, how they did performance wise. For individual contributor roles, usually they're, you know, saying, what did you complete in terms of these things that you have as tasks? And so they're giving feedback to me about themselves. And then I'm asking them in this set of questions, it's basically a rubric. They're basically telling me how they think they did. And so the easiest thing to do is to create a sort of rubric that people fill out and turn into you. You don't need to have a conversation to facilitate that. And so I would say that, you know, yes, we're all about growth, but if you get somebody to point it out themselves first and to be self-measuring, like if I step on the scale each morning and I want to lose weight, the likelihood that I lose weight is high. If you tell me how much I weigh every day, the likelihood I lose weight is I probably will, but I will lose less. So if they point it out themselves, then they are more likely to take action. So you create the environment and the systems in which they can point it out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Actually, when I'm thinking about it, like I have people who are with me for a few years, and I don't have to give them much feedback. It's just once a week they take it, and I don't have to work on that much.
Yeah.
But with the new people, it takes time. Let's say 6 to 12 months. Still, it's onboarding before they don't come up with their own ideas in some way. So it's still quite a lot. So I'm.
Can we also just highlight? You said it takes 6 to 12 months. 6 to 12 months to get somebody like really on board in a business. Like that's not. That was actually a great thing to say. I've never heard anyone normalize that. So that's 100% true. It takes a while.
Yeah, and so maybe one last about that, is it the frequency? I understand that they can do weekly report, but they don't understand, so I can elaborate it. Or what is too much, if I would ask, like very simply, to giving them, this is the gap, this is how I would solve it.
If they do daily reporting because they have daily metrics, then you can give daily feedback. And if you give more feedback, make it smaller. If you give less feedback, it would need to be bigger. What's more effective is small, frequent feedback. There's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't feel like too much if it's one thing at a time. So for example, if somebody gives me something like on a quarterly review, I don't go through and talk about the 6 things that someone needs to do differently. Wow, so many Gatorades. I talk about the one thing that's going to move the needle for that person. Does that not mean that there's like 3 other things that I would like them to work on? No, there's definitely 3 others. But I know that this is the one we have to focus on. Yeah. So when it starts to feel like too much is when you're overwhelming them. They haven't even improved the first skill and you're already telling them, here's the next 2 that you've got to work on. And they haven't even fixed that first one.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Right here. So I'm trying to change the culture a little bit because lately we've been veering more towards negative reinforcement, and I want to change it back because we used to be very very positive, but lately it's been shifting the other direction. So can you tell me like your top 3 do's and don'ts of like building a positive culture?
Well, I'd ask you this, which is why did it shift?
Hired a new manager and he took what he learned in the last company over to ours, and I haven't yet trained him on how to, talk to and coach the people on there.
Okay. So the culture shifted because you hired this manager.
Yes.
How long has he been a manager?
In company here, like my company, or
in general, like how long has he been doing that type of work?
I don't remember. I think it was like 3 years.
Okay, so is he older or is he young?
About my age.
How old
So
are you?
32. 32.
I don't know. Okay. Okay, so he's on the younger side. Okay, that's good to know. Basically, I look at it like this, which is like if somebody were to tell me, if I were to come to you and be like, "Hey, how do I shift my culture?" You were like, "Well, why?" And I'd be like, "Well, I hired this one manager, and they made it worse." Then I would say they didn't do their job. They're doing the opposite of their job, and so that's the first thing I would actually start with, which is like, and this is actually like a really important point, which is like one person can really change the culture of a company if they're in a leadership position. Because it shows to the rest of the leaders what's acceptable and what's not. So it also, I would say, like demotivates a lot of other leaders on the team because they're thinking to themselves like, oh, well, if that's acceptable, then like, why am I trying so fucking hard? And then to everybody else on the team, they're like, well, this is what he thinks a leader is. And so I would ask you this, which is, have you brought that up to him, and does he acknowledge that that is how he does things and that it's not productive?
Yeah, I've recently brought it up to him, and we're changing the culture now. So
Okay,
a
so
little bit late, but
how many people are on the team?
11.
I would just ask this. How long do you think it's going to take? It's not about changing the culture, it's about changing him.
Mhm.
How long is it going to take to change his behavior? Do you have the skills to change his behavior?
I believe so.
Okay.
And if I were to guess, maybe 3 months to fully change it, like completely turn it around.
Do you have the time?
At the moment, yes, I do.
Okay. And the desire, clearly.
Yeah.
Fine. Um, most of the time, I would say, like, if you hire somebody and they make the culture worse, it's probably not the right person to put in there. And here's the one thing I'll say to you, which is you can coach him on how he can change. It's not about changing your culture, it's about changing this one person. But if your team does not accept him as a leader, that's a completely different problem. What I tell people all the time is you can come in here and you can be a leader to Layla, but if you're not a leader to your peers and to the rest of the team, and they don't see you as a leader, I can't help you with that. I can train you all day, I can do all these things, but if you don't know how to work the team dynamics, then I can't help you because they will push you out, not me. And that's how teams work. Is like if they do not, if they don't respect this person as a leader because maybe they have opposite values of you, then you can do as much as you want. The likelihood that they end up truly letting that person be their leader and submitting to them is low. So I would just plant that seed for you so you can keep that in your mind. In terms of changing that behavior, it's about frequency of feedback. And so when it's one person, because you really need to change one person to change, quote, the culture, then it's what is the behavior that they're doing and how do we measure it and constantly give them feedback about it? And also be incredibly fucking direct about it. Like I would literally be like, I went to this conference and the question that I asked Layla on stage was, how do I change the culture? And she said, oh, it's your manager. Because I would want that person to understand how important it is. And say like, listen, I'm having this conversation with you because I believe that you can change. If I didn't believe it, then I would just replace you. But I believe you can. Here's what we need to do. And then I'd formulate a plan with them. And that plan would be dictated around like, what's the one behavior that they exhibit that is causing the most issues, right? So I'll give you an example I've had successful behavior change and I've had non-successful. So I had one person who was non-successful, that person, she would get very angry with people out of nowhere. So basically, like, someone would say something, it would provoke anxiety in her because it would be like, oh, that's a lot of work for me, or oh, that's a lot of change, or oh, whatever, it'd freak her out, right? And then she would like yell at them, like straight up, and like be a complete freaking meanie head. And it was the complete opposite. I wanted to say something else of our culture. And I was like, what the hell? So, I pulled her to the side and I was like, dude, this is fucked up. Like, this is the opposite of everything we teach, what we preach, my content. Like, what's going on? And she was like, I know, I don't know how to change it. Completely knew that was going on and said, yes, I want to change it. That's why I work here. That's why I wanted to work for you. And I was like, gosh, I didn't know that you even knew of this. And I hadn't even seen it until now. And so basically what we did is that we had a cadence where we met multiple times a week to talk about like, how have you done? Basically had her color code her calls according to like green meant like you did great, you didn't snap at anybody, and red meant like you snapped at somebody. And what I saw happen was that actually her behavior got worse, not better. Right. And so sometimes that happens because people are so ingrained in their behavior that then they get anxious about the fact that they know that you know, and it starts happening more. That's happened before. Now, I've also had it where it's been successful, and that has been different in different cases. In one case, I had a guy that he would get really mopey on calls whenever there was something that didn't go his way. And so I brought it to his attention and was like, did you know that every time like you clearly don't agree with something, like you kind of mope on these calls, and it's like really not great for the culture, especially because you're a leader. And he was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. And like that was all it took to change it around and turn it around. And I was just completely upfront, honest. I didn't sugarcoat anything, right? There's some people who what you have to do is you have to constantly reinforce it for a week or 2 weeks. Here's what I'd say. You address it, you give him feedback daily on if you see it or don't see it. So you praise him when he does something right. And if he doesn't do something well, you have to critique him. And what you want to see is if he greatly improves quickly, then that is a good leading indicator. If he does not improve quickly, that's not the kind of person that I would want on my team, because that means he's probably not intrinsically motivated to make the change.
Gotcha. So would I get feedback from the team to see if he's changed, or would I be watching that myself? Well, I guess it's both, right?
Yeah, both. I think he's going to be gone 6 months. Okay, next question.
Awesome, thank you.
Back here in the group.
And Layla, this will be your last question.
Okay.
Pressure. All right, you're even more glamorous in person, by the way. My question is, my girlfriend is very smart, and she's a developer in my company. And I was wondering how you and Alex give each other feedback now, and how has that changed over the years from running different sizes of companies?
So, do you mean like how do we give each other feedback?
Yeah. How do you approach giving each other constructive criticism, feedback, without it bleeding into other aspects of your relationship?
We can disagree without arguing. So we often disagree on things, or like I might give him feedback or he might give me feedback, and we might disagree with it, go back and forth, whatever. But then we can come to a conclusion, and we're doing this without yelling, without fighting, without taking it personally. And that's the difference between arguing. I think arguing is when you're escalating, you're bringing emotions into it, versus like just simply disagreeing. And so because we're not afraid of disagreeing, we can easily bring feedback to each other, right? And say like, hey, here's my feedback and here's the data to support it. And that's, I think, what we've both done really well is just we support any kind of feedback that we give each other with data, which is just like, here's the data. And usually the feedback that we give to each other is more of like, if either one of us are trying to make a decision that's more under either one of our wheelhouses and the other one disagrees with it, then usually the question I ask is like, well, what information do you have that I don't have? Right? And then it's like, okay, we'll share the information. Because most of the time, if we're operating on the same values and we have the same mission, we both want to get there, then if we're making different decisions, maybe we have different data points that we're using. And so a lot of times that's what we have found to be like the linchpin in like our feedback is like, if it's not based in data, then it's not going to be as well received and it's not going to be as useful. And so I always start with data, which is like, what's the data I have to share for him to be able to make this decision with the most context possible? And he does the same for me. And I think that's something that we've gotten really good at is just like constantly anchoring to the goal, which is like, I love you. We want the same things. We both want to win. We don't agree here. Maybe we have the wrong data. So I think we do a great job of framing conversations, which is like, before we like disagree about something, let's remember we're on the same team. And I think that in the beginning of our relationship and partnership, it didn't feel that way because we hadn't been on the same team before that, right? We'd been on different teams. And so now it's second nature, which is like, I just know that we're both here for the greater good of each other. I don't have to say it as much, but for a couple years there, like every conversation needed to start with what we called qualifiers, which is essentially framing the conversation, anchoring it to the goal, and reminding each other of the fact that we both want the same things. And sometimes that is like the one thing that you need to be able to receive some of the feedback. And I think, especially for when I've observed a lot of couples in business together, male-female relationship, a lot of men tend to give less context to women, and a lot of women tend to use emotions as explanations. And so my advice usually is to men, give more context to your feedback, over-explain, because usually that's just explain. And then for women is lead with data, not emotion, because a lot of times they might find, oh, it was just an emotion, there's actually no supporting data. Or they might say, oh my gosh, my emotions are supported by data, and now I have words to put to what I'm feeling. And so I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, it was. Thank you. I appreciate that.
For sure. Let's do one more. Oh Oh, well, that was very enthusiastic.
We're kind of struggling with our LTV to CAC ratio, mostly because we are an e-commerce D2C beauty, and our products are one-time purchases.
What is it?
Our main product is IPL hair removal device.
Yep,
And we
okay.
have LD devices like face mask ones.
Yeah, I've seen those recently, and I was like, those exist? Okay.
Yeah, and they're good.
Yeah.
So my question is, how much should we focus on, like maybe launching new products so we can increase our LTV to CAC ratio? Because our recurring revenue is pretty low, like 6% maybe.
Yeah.
How much should we focus on increasing this recurring revenue versus just like selling our bestseller products, you know? Because we have the confidence, we can scale. We're at 2 million revenue a year. We can make maybe like 5, 6 in 1.5 years, 2 years.
Yeah.
So how much should we focus on increasing the revenue retention versus just selling more of what we can sell?
Well, how hard is it to continue selling more of what you're currently selling?
Well, we think not much. We think we can do it.
Right, because in your business, typically that is pretty straightforward. So is there a way that you guys could sort of divide and conquer this so that one of you focuses on keeping the wheels on the bus, keep doing what we're doing, while the other one of you goes and tries to figure out how we could expand LTV?
Well, I think we could, but yeah, I think we could.
Because a lot of times, for example, like for me and Alex, we divide and conquer all the time, which is like, all right, you go here, I go here, break. Like we do not focus on the same thing together. That would be a waste of both of our times. And that goes for a lot of partnerships. You have to really trust your business partner, because if you're doing, you guys are business partners?
Yeah.
Okay, God. I was just like, I just assumed. That would have been so fucking awkward. A lot of times people overlap a lot, and so it limits bandwidth. And so if I were you guys in this situation, I'd be like, cool, I'm going to scale as best as I can front end, and then you go work on back end. And I would try and do that. Now, I do think this, which is like, in order to have a sustainable business, figuring out the LTV and how to have recurring revenue is crucial. Because eventually when you can't get more customers because whatever, the fad goes away, you know, there's a new thing that comes out, whatever it is, like that's not like a business, that's like an opportunity. So you want to turn this opportunity into more of a recurring business with probably additional products and things they can buy on the back end.
Yeah. Do you think it is sustainable to increase this lifetime value just by continuously launching new products that do not necessarily complement each other?
I would say the first step is to do that, and the next step after that is to create a brand.
Like consumables, like something like
A
that.
brand is in like a brand that consumers trust, rather than just like launching products, like what's the North Star? Are we creating a brand? Because if you look at like D2C, why do people buy? Like brand. You know, I mean, it's really hard to differentiate on price or on the thing you're selling itself, unless you get in at the right time. And then you're like, holy shit, ride this wave. But at some point, it's going to come crashing down. And then it's like, what are you left with if you haven't built a brand? And so I think that the smart thing to do is that if you're in the market at the right time, which it sounds like, obviously, I just saw this for the first time. It seems like it's something new. Like you have the ability to create a brand based on, like, if you can continue scaling and building the back end, that's the next few things you have to do. But after that, how do you get people to want to buy before they even see the product that you have? How do you get people to want to buy the next product before they even know what it is? Brand. And so that's the only way I think that you will continue to compete in that market, is if you focus on building a brand. I would not buy from somebody that I saw on a random whatever, right? I'll buy from a brand though. And I don't even care what they have. I'll buy everything they have because I like the brand. And so I think it's continue to scale the front end. Work on the lifetime value recurring, yes, because you need that with a brand itself. And then it's like, what is this brand that we're building?
Thanks.
Absolutely. All right, guys. I think Sammy's going to come wrap it up for everybody. I appreciate the leftovers. They were not too bad today. Thank you, guys.